Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel and welcome to this afternoon's live stream to preview Norwich versus Chelsea in the Premier League. Tomorrow evening, the Blues head to Basement Boys Norwich City at Carrow Road, and this kicks off a run of 4 games in 12 days across 3 different competitions. So the games are coming thick and fast now. And, you know, in the reverse fixture, we delivered a 7-0 thrashing with a Mason Mount hat-trick. I don't think we're going to quite see the same, but it's vitally important that, you know, we continue our good form. Home put 4 past Burnley. Tomorrow represents another good opportunity to continue our good goal-scoring form. But before we get into the game, etc., and a bit more news around it, first things first, please do smash the like on this video and please do click that subscribe button. We are edging closer to 400 subscribers. So if you're watching live or if you're watching back, please do subscribe to the channel. It really helps us and we would appreciate it very much. Delighted, as always, to be joined by George. Mate, great to have you on again. Before we kick things off about the game and stuff, I just wanted to get your thoughts on today. There's been a supposed leaked kit for Chelsea's home shirt next season. And to be honest, mate, quite frankly, I think it's absolutely awful. So I'd just like to get your thoughts on it. Again, it's not confirmed, but supposedly this is what it's going to be. I'm going to bring it up on the screen now. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, it's not the worst in the world. It's not the worst that I've seen from a Nike kit point of view. I've seen a lot. This is the first time I've seen this image, by the way.
Yeah. Let me just flick through a few more.
Automatically, it reminds me of kind of 2002-3 with the collar. But that, I mean, what's even going on the collar?
Mate, it looks like someone's just scribbled on it.
Looks like someone from my classroom's just like boycotted the whole shirt or something.
Mate, it is. It's not great.
The thing that I don't get is, you know, I think less is more in a shirt. So I like the idea that they've kept the majority of it simple, but then they always have to go one step too far and just add something really shit to it, don't they? I
mean, what's wrong with the plain collar? Why there's scribbles on it?
Unless that's got an unwritten message, I don't know. You know, there's a lot of people who review the kits who really go into detail and get some information on, you know, why they put certain things there. But for me, I've said it to you plenty of times, haven't I? I can't imagine people sitting in a room who are supposed to be, you know, part of the marketing team, part of the branding, everything else, and just think we've done a good job there. We've done a great job. And then walk away and think that is good enough for release. And the fact that that's probably going to go, again, up by £5-10, probably going to be looking at 70 quid, 75 quid for a shirt. Just basic. And I probably share the opinion of many Chelsea fans that since we've moved from Adidas to Nike, it's just not been the same.
Mate, Nike are doing us dirty with these horrendous kits. I mean, I know I've got 2 in the background here, but that's because, you know, we're world champions and that, and it had to be purchased. But generally speaking, Nike have done us dirty with these kits. They design better training kits than our match tops. I mean, if we could swap, that would kind of be ideal. But that's enough on the kit. Hopefully, something changes and it might be a little bit different come the start of next season. But another thing I wanted to talk to you about, George, was the future of Andreas Christensen. You know, and one of a number of defenders out of contract at the end of the season, alongside Antonio Rudiger and Cesar Azpilicueta. It's come out in certainly the last couple of days, definitely this week and a little bit over the weekend, that he is virtually joined Barcelona. He'll be joining on a contract until 2027 there, a free agent. His dad, who used to represent him, did want him to stay at Chelsea, but it's understood that Christensen actually wants a new challenge, which I think is totally fair enough. What are your thoughts on his impending departure? And are you surprised that he's decided to seek pastures new, given his age and how important a player he can be for Chelsea in the next few years?
Yeah, but what you have to pose the question is, how long has Andreas Christensen been told that about being, you know, a big player and you've got a future at the club? I mean, you have to go back to the John Terry days where he said, watch out for Christensen. He's one of the players to watch. And for whatever reason, even at his peak, hasn't quite established a consistent starting place in the team. It's really disappointing, first of all, because I think he's a good player. He's had his ups and downs at the club. But, despite what we think about Barcelona and Real Madrid and the like at moments, I still feel that those clubs have pulling power that automatically attracts interest for those types of players. And, if Barcelona come knocking, how often are they going to do that? And certainly as they're looking to rebuild, I think he'll be a major part of that side compared to what we've given him the opportunity for. I just think there's a bit of an imbalance, that Chelsea have a policy of anyone over the age of 30 gets a 1-year contract, but then we're prioritising someone like Rudiger over someone like Christensen, who really, future-wise, has got a long, at least 4 or 5 seasons left.
So you saying that you'd rather, if there was a choice between losing Rudiger or Christensen, are you saying that you'd rather lose Rudiger then?
Personally, it's difficult because Rudiger's obviously a better player, and we're all about instant success as a model. We're about the next trophy coming around the corner. So best team wise, no, but you have to think about business as well. You have to think about longevity, and for me, Christensen's got a higher market value if he does well, say next season, and stayed at Chelsea. He's got more of a long-term future because of his age. And you could see the potential there. He could be the next best defender in the Premier League if he wants to be. I honestly do believe that. Do you think another thing that's disappointing is that, having him been there since he was 15, he's come through the academy, he's been a successful part of the loan scheme, etc. He's come in, he's cemented a first team place. Is it more disappointing the fact that we're losing him for nothing as well? I think that hurts a little bit as well, that the fact, we've developed him. He's a top player. He's someone that if you wanted to buy him, he's going to cost at least £50 million, and he's going for nothing. Yeah, that does hurt. It really does hurt because we need to get something back from our best players. It's been well known now, and particularly with all the circulation around new owners and what the future of the club looks like. We don't necessarily know if we're going to have a new idea of we have to sell players to bring players in, like a Liverpool model, which we've had to do in the past. We had to sell Eden Hazard to finance some of the big deals that have come through in recent light. It's just a shame, but I completely agree with what you're saying, that I understand if he wants new challenges. The difficulty of winning everything of a club like Chelsea have done is that players perhaps want to embark on something different. So it comes with a double-edged sword, I guess. You win a lot of trophies and you have this community together where everyone wins as a team, but then those players, even at their peak, want to move on. It's just a shame because I think he could have gone on to do great things more at Chelsea if he had just stayed a little longer. But what can you say?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, mate, players that will be better than him have come and left Chelsea, and it's just part and parcel of supporting a team. But it's always disappointing when you end up losing some of your better players, and you don't get any money back for them either. Because as I've touched on, in this market, a player of his quality and of his age, that's commanding big money. Tuchel, when asked about his future, saying he's heard the rumours. It's clear, they're not happy about it. Interestingly saying that himself and club representatives think it's best for him to stay. He thinks it's a decisive moment for him to step up and be a huge player for Chelsea in the next years. If he decides otherwise, I'll not take it personally. I think that's totally fair. George, I know Tuchel's also said that he'll continue to pick him for the rest of the season. Do you think that? I think that's the right thing to do. Ultimately, he's still a Chelsea player. He's still a very good defender, and we can definitely use him in our running for the remainder of the season. Where do you stand on using players that are, still part of the squad, but have agreed to go elsewhere at the end of the season? I mean, we spoke about this with Dharmesh on the podcast a couple of weeks back, and how it can sometimes create potentially a bit of a dressing room divide. You've got someone on board that is not going to be there next season, and if they make a mistake or perform poorly, is it because they're not focused on it and they're focused on where they're going to be next season? I mean, what are your thoughts on Christensen still playing this season? I've personally got no problem with him still playing if he's performing.
Yeah, and it's the most boring answer you can get, but it depends on the situation and it depends on the character, because it's about man and management and that player itself. And I'm sure that Tuchel knows Christensen very, very well, and he'll make an assessment based on conversations that they have. And you get some players that just turn off and think, right, time to put the shorts on, get somewhere sunny. I want out and I can't wait for the next season. And they just switch off. Other players will be determined to make sure that they leave on a positive note, still want to, commit to the club. And I'm sure with the history that Christensen has at our club, that he'll be doing that, and he's fully focused on doing that for our club and doing the absolute best he can. So for me, I agree. It's all about performance and man management skills. And I think there's absolutely no issue whatsoever with playing Christensen for the tail end of this season.
No, I 100% agree. Let me just get to a few bits in the chat. Rudiger is our best defender with silver. Yeah, I think that's fair. And we touched on this already. Going for free is absurd. We could have got a lot of money. Yeah, that's the frustrating thing. It really is. On the subject of money, George, just wanted to get your thoughts on obviously the very public takeover that is in the process of being sorted out. I don't know how much of it you've been kind of following or looking at. I mean, what are your thoughts on the takeover itself? Obviously, we're not going to get another owner like Roman. I think as fans, we need to realise that he was very unique, one of a kind. What are your thoughts on, the takeover going on? And do you think it's a distraction for the players and the club? I know Tuchel's kind of said, we just get on with it. We're professionals. We've played against backdrops of kind of worse things and stuff. I mean, where do you stand on it, really? Do you think it's a big distraction? Or do you think kind of like it's now the main part of it, Roman saying he's selling, is like now it's out in the open, you just let it do its thing?
Yeah, and if anything, you can turn it into a positive. It could be a healthy competition for places. There's an uncertainty within the group about the future of the football club and, how much we're going to be able to spend, if any, or whether there's going to be a complete transitional overhaul of all the players we have so far. We really have no idea, but they mention it on a lot of podcasts that I listen to and say, you've got to, you can't control the uncontrollables. So just focus on your task at hand, which is for the players to get 3 points in our next game and to make sure that we finish in the top 4 and to hopefully win a trophy as well at the end of the season with the FA Cup and the Champions League, perhaps. Of course, it's going to be a distraction when everything stops on the field, for sure, because then when the football stops, the talking starts. But really, there's nothing that they can do, the players, and that they are employees of the football club, so it's not their decision or for them to get involved. And it's uncertain times. I mean, I know we won't get into Roman Abramovich, and I know you've done that on a previous show about his thing and everything else. But the bottom line is you can turn it into a positive. It doesn't have to be all negative about Chelsea just because it's uncertain. I mean, we were almost a non-existent football club in 2002-3, and then all of a sudden, look what's happened. So let's be positive.
I mean, just lastly on this, what do you think? For me, it's a bit of a red flag on potential owners making their interest and their bid so public and talking about it in the press. I mean, for me, that's like an immediate red flag on potential owners. I mean, I think for me personally, like a business deal of this size and of this amount of money, we're talking between £2 and £3 billion for an investment. If you're serious as a businessman, you're not conducting this in public and briefing the press about whether you've bidded, etc. You're doing this behind closed doors, and when there's some news to deliver, you deliver it. Are you of the same opinion that of people that are many parties at the moment that are airing their interest publicly, saying they've bidded, etc., etc.? Is that a red flag for you as well?
It is, and let's not forget. I mean, I was probably too young when the takeover happened in terms of reading newspapers and all the rest of it. But Roman Abramovich came out of nowhere. He was not at the forefront. Literally, the players were unaware completely. Had ideas of their own, and they were all informed. Literally, after Ken Bates, he literally rolled up. They shook hands, and he invested. So it's usually the people that aren't in the paper, the ones doing the business behind closed doors, like you said. You do not want to be involved or associated with a business who are either trying to fabricate how much they've got to spend or gloating or trying to create this monopoly effect of a bidding war, because again, that's an unhealthy start to what, do you take those businessmen seriously? I mean, how many people realistically have that type of money?
It's not a lot.
Not a lot. So I think these people that will take over Chelsea are not the names that have been circulating around the media at the moment. Yeah, no,
I think I would agree with that. And I think also probably a number of those individuals are using this as an opportunity to raise their own profiles, get themselves into the media and then try and direct some attention onto their businesses. Because, as soon as someone gets linked with it in the press, they're like, well, let's look up who they are. Let's look at their businesses. And it's all like traffic
go up
to exactly. But I mean, moving away from that, let's move back to the task at hand tomorrow night, a trip to bottom club Norwich City. Obviously, earlier in the season, we beat them 7-0 at Stamford Bridge. George, unlikely to be a repeat of that tomorrow night. It should be probably a much tougher game. New management, Dean Smith's come in, they've done okay. They're still struggling. How do you view this one going tomorrow as a whole? Because, Thomas Tuchel said that it's going to be completely different to what we saw at Stamford Bridge. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I mean, I was at the game, and that was probably where we were at our peak in the season, where we were scoring goals for fun, really solid at the back, not conceding goals. Everyone fit. We were cruising. I don't know if we were top of the league at that point, but we were doing very well. And this is honestly the worst performance I've ever seen from a Premier League side, other than maybe when Derby came back to the Premier League, where they struggled to get points, but they were woeful. And it is going to be a different game. Not just because it's away from home, but because Norwich have seemed to have turned the corner. They have given themselves half a chance with some of the results of late. Pukki managed to be, getting the goals for them, getting some points on the board. But you would still very much favour them to go down. But they're going to be now at this tail end of the season, giving themselves every fighting chance. And let's be honest, Chelsea have turned a corner themselves in a negative direction as well. I mean, we've had some positive results of late, but the title's gone since we last played Norwich. And it is a completely different outset for both sides with different targets now.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, Tuchel saying, because this was exceptional, it happens once a season. If it happens, it would be a big mistake to draw any conclusions from this game. We will not use it in preparations. I mean, I'm not saying the players will, and obviously Tuchel's switched on. He'll have them fully focused, and they won't. I doubt they'll even be talking about it. But how important is it tomorrow that we don't go into the game with a sense of, we'll turn up and we're just going to roll these over? Because particularly away from home, it's different. And also, as you get towards the end of the season, and where you go to these teams that are fighting for their lives, their efforts and intensity and desperation almost goes up a little bit. So it's a far more dangerous proposition than playing them near the start of the season.
Yeah, and these are the games that they don't need any motivation for. Sometimes those dogfights against the equal opposition in, let's say, for example, with Burnley, can sometimes be a bit difficult, be a bit scrappy, not many chances, but no one needs motivating to get, a home match against Chelsea, particularly when they might be thinking in the back of their minds, how many of them are going to play Premier League football again, perhaps. So they'll be up for it. From a Chelsea perspective, obviously some results have gone our way in terms of Manchester United. So we need to make sure that we solidify that third position as early as possible coming into the last bit of the season. And we've been performing well of late, but it's not going to be an easy task. We do struggle to break down the sides who particularly play, low blocks. I would expect Norwich to come out a little bit more than, let's say, what happened at Stamford Bridge, regardless of the result. I would expect them to play a bit more of an attacking brand of football tomorrow, and they can be dangerous. But I've got absolutely no worries as such that we can't get 3 points tomorrow. I would be shocked.
Yeah, I think I'd be shocked. Obviously, there's always a chance of an upset. It's football; either side can win. Stating the obvious there, but you'd be very, very surprised if we turned up and we weren't able to get the win. It would be really poor. And as you said, we need to try and close the gap to second place, but ideally we want to be securing ourselves in third place. No problems, and not going into the final weeks of the season still trying to secure that top four position. We just don't want that as a distraction. We just want to get it wrapped up as soon as possible. And these are the sort of games that we've got to be winning. In terms of the team news, Ben Chilwell obviously still out. There was a picture of him yesterday. He was outside on the grass doing a little bit of the football, got people very excited. Thomas Tuchel today saying that, they just got him outside. They wanted him to, I think his phrase was, they wanted him to smell the grass, and because it was nice whether he could do a bit of his work outside. But he said he's a long way from training and a long way from football. I think we all know that. I think we just get a bit excited when we see Chile with a ball at his feet. But unfortunately, mate, he's just come back. We saw him get 70 minutes in the cup final, about a half hour against Luton, and about 70 odd minutes again against Burnley, where he got an assist and a goal, and he performed so well. Reece James injured again. This is really not good news for Chelsea. It just seemed that, we were getting back. He was getting back to the form he showed before he got injured. Thomas Tuchel saying that Reece James has a muscular injury and is out of Norwich. James needs a scan still. Tuchel is worried, but doesn't think it's bad. I mean, he described it as a as a setback. It's hopeful it's not a major setback. The problem for me is that this is not in the same leg or same muscle that the previous injury was in. It's in a different leg. Now he's obviously going to miss this game. I'd probably expect him to miss Newcastle as well. George, this is a massive blow, isn't it?
Yeah, huge. And we've already spoken in great length about. I mean, me personally, I'm convinced that Chelsea are in this title race still with Chilwell and James. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball. It's all ifs, buts and maybes. But you only have to look at what Liverpool lacked last season in Virgil van Dijk. As soon as he came back this season, they've been transformed. They haven't actually really made many signings. Came straight back. And he's been the difference. Let's be honest. And for us, the way we play, we are desperate for Reece James or Ben Chilwell, ideally both, but certainly one. And just that you only have to look at the last few games that he's played, the impact that he's had in the games. It's just really bad news. And you do wonder, is he going to be that classic case of so much potential, but injury prone? My first thought of Reece James after this is Ian Robin, someone of that quality who's just going to pick up injuries that's just going to stagnate his career. I really hope that's not the case. But our levels are considerably less without him in the side. Not so much Chilwell, but I think James is even more pivotal on that right-hand side because of his attacking threat. And it almost just completely changes the way that we have to approach games with one player. It's mental.
I mean, that in itself is perhaps a slight concern as well, that we're so reliant, particularly in this back five system, you're so reliant on the wing backs to contribute. And when one of them's missing, it's bad enough. But with both of them missing, it's even worse. I mean, obviously, it's kind of a different conversation. But I think moving forward, we either need to bring in like two other wing backs either side that are as good or just beneath that level, so that when these injuries do occur, which they will occur over the course of a season, of course they will, that we have ready-made replacements that can step up and do as good a job, if not slightly better on certain occasions, which we don't have at the moment. So I think the reliance on these two, particularly for how we play in this system, I don't want to say it's alarming, but I think we need to become less reliant on it if we're going to succeed going forward.
Yeah, we do. But then again, you make the comparison with Liverpool. I mean,
yeah,
they for whatever reason, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson just don't seem to get injured, and they play with them. I wonder how they would do without them in the same situation. I don't think they'd be anywhere near City at the moment. And sometimes you can plan for it, but it's very difficult to get like for like for the quality that we've got. We've got Azpilicueta, who's a great right back or a centre back, but it's a completely different style of play. We've had players like Lamperty before that we let go. Livramento is another one who could have played fullback. So we've had options. We could have recalled Emerson, for example. We didn't do that. Unfortunately, it's just one of those where we've had a season that's those two have just been out for long periods of the season that you just can't foresee. But I agree that maybe not necessarily bringing people in, but just having a slightly different system that we can use without the fullbacks and work on that. But then how much time do they have to do that? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah,
it's a fair point. I mean, do you think that coming back from this injury, do you think Reece James has been slightly overused? I mean, in terms, I'm not saying Tuchel's mismanaged him, but I think perhaps, in my opinion, he's been used a lot more than perhaps he should have been. But because he's a key player, we've just wanted to get him on the pitch and use him. I mean, I remember Tuchel saying after the Carabao Cup final, Reece James was only meant to play 20 minutes. He played 70. He then played half an hour against Luton in the Cup. When we're coming on, we're chasing the game to try and win it and go through. And then he obviously starts against Burnley and plays 70 minutes there. I mean, do you think, obviously, because of how important he is, do you think he's been slightly overused in the way his minutes have been handled on his return from injury?
Definitely, but I don't think at the moment we've had another option. Chelsea, without Reece James, are just not as a dangerous threat that we can be. We just don't have. We've documented it countless times this season about the lack of a so-called number 8 or a number 10 who's going to get you double digits. Obviously, Lukaku not scoring goals. He, as we said, will probably get more goals if the fullbacks play. We've just got no one like him to replace him in the side. You even look at Liverpool again as using the comparison. Even if one of them's out, you've got a very similar one on the other side. Alonso is not. Not a Robertson on the left-hand side. it's alarming in the sense that we're so reliant on one player, but it's also credit to Reece James for how good he is. I mean, he quite literally is, apart from maybe Trent, you could argue that he's probably better all-rounder. Maybe not with the delivery or his pace, but I think defensively he's better. Goal scoring, he's better. So he's one of the best fullbacks in world football. And of course, you're going to use your best players in the world. So it's annoying, but what can you do? I mean, you play your best players.
No, I agree. I think it's just one of those things. And, the circumstances, unfortunately, didn't dictate that we could manage those minutes so well. And it's just happened. Hopefully, it's not a major setback, but, hopefully we need him back in the side soon, because we are far better when he plays than when he doesn't play. In terms of the Norwich game itself, George, we've touched on it. It's going to be difficult. It's away from home. They're fighting for their lives. We've been quite critical, despite the fact we've been picking up results in recent weeks. We were kind of just scraping by and just nicking results here and there. Do you think, obviously, the first half against Burnley was dreadful. Second half was a lot better, and we scored 4 goals. And that's the first time we scored a large amount of goals in a game for a significant period of time, particularly in the Premier League. Do you think there's room for optimism that we can carry on that goal-scoring form from that second half performance against Burnley? I mean, were you impressed by it? 3 goals in 7 minutes in that second half completely killed the game off, and we haven't seen us be ruthless like that for a while.
And it's funny, isn't it, that we've now again started to play well, or certainly score more goals and get more results. Now Lukaku again has been drifted outside. So it's not helping Lukaku's case or Lukaku fans, because we played our best football of the season at the tail end of last season when we won the Champions League with no Lukaku at Chelsea. We then played our best football when Lukaku wasn't in the side at the start of the season. And then we tailed off when he came in. And now he's out again and we're playing well again. So I hate to say it, but we are more fluid as a team without him in the side. Now, I know you can make a casing argument that he needs more service and all this, but I disagreed with the starting lineup that you boys put up before about Lukaku starting. I understand the reasons why he might have been given it, but I was fairly confident that we were going to go with Havertz as that 9. And again, it wasn't convincing. I thought first half against Burnley, we were actually quite shoddy.
It was
Burnley were unlucky, and then made some poor mistakes. Got a little bit sloppy, and the quality again from Chelsea just showed. Particularly from Havertz and the like, and James. I mean, James again so crucial.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just ironic, isn't it, that all the talk's been about Lukaku, and yet we're seeming to hit form where a number 9's been dropped. And I think it is the right call from Tuchel. I think he had to be bold and brave and say, actually, I don't care how much money you were or whether we need to fit you in the system. You're not playing well enough to get into the team. And Havertz seems to be on a bit of a roll at the moment. I'd be very surprised now if Havertz doesn't start against Norwich and that we keep it. But yeah, I'm quietly now confident that we're starting to get in a really nice rhythm that Chelsea always seem to do at the tail ends of seasons, like we did in the Champions League in 2021, where we just seem to get that momentum going just at the right time where we need to get big results.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's great to have options as well. It's great to be able to, throw on a £100 million striker if we're chasing a goal, or whatever circumstances as the match plays out, whatever the circumstances dictate. And Tuchel was saying that, no one's undroppable. Havertz obviously doing really well at the moment. He said that, it doesn't mean they both can't play together. Havertz doesn't just play 9, he can play a different position. So we could potentially see the 2 of them on the pitch as well, with maybe Mason Mount in behind potentially. I thought second half against Burnley, it was still a front 3, but Mount dropped slightly deeper and it looked like it was a dual strike force of Havertz and Pulisic. And that did seem to work a little bit better. So we have got little subtle tactical changes that we can make there. But I do agree, the attack, well, certainly in that second half, it looked a lot better. But the disappointing thing is Reece James was a massive part of that. Yeah. And now he's out again. So yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. But I mean, I'm fully expecting Chelsea to have more than enough against Norwich. It shouldn't. I mean, no game's a foregone conclusion, but we've got so much more quality. We're playing better than them. We just need to turn up, be professional, and get that job done. I mean, let's move into the starting 11 then. I've got it up as a back 5, George. Do you think that Reece James being injured alters Thomas Tuchel's thinking, or do you think because the game's away from home, we want to be defensively solid, this offers us more solidity at the back? Are you fully expecting a back 5? Yeah,
I still think that back 5 is the foundation of what you do going forward. and being away from home, I think that setup is far more solid than if you start eradicating the formation at the back. So I would expect to see a 5 for me.
Yeah, I think I would as well. I mean, there's not really much of a conversation to have about this one. Edouard Mendy in goal. Not a lot to say. He's the number one keeper, best goalkeeper in the world. Didn't have a lot to do against Burnley at the weekend. He probably won't have an awful lot to do tonight. Not tonight, tomorrow night. But, he's that number one in between the sticks. Obviously, back three, it's going to be Silva and Rudiger for two of them. Now that Christensen's fit again, given the situation around his future, who do you expect to play there? We saw Chalobah play against Burnley and in the cup final. For you, George, Chalobah or Christensen for this final slot?
I think it will be Chalobah just based on, I think you can only be as good as your last performance. And I think changing a side that's won 4-0 away from home against a so-called what could have been a very tough game in Burnley, which we have done very well in the past, but they haven't been easy games. I'd be very surprised if he's going to change a back four unless he's been forced into a change. So I wouldn't expect Christensen to come back in for this one.
No, I mean, how impressed have you been with Trevor Chalobah, mate? I mean, because obviously, Thiago Silva gets the plaudits, and rightly so. He's been absolutely phenomenal. So is Rudiger. I know Chalobah's been getting some credit, but I think he's gone slightly under the radar of just how good a defender he is, how good he could potentially be, and the fact he just looks at home in this back line.
Well, he's got the perfect platform, hasn't he? He's got the most experienced and informed defender possibly in the world, in the league at the moment, in Thiago Silva, other than Virgil van Dijk. I mean, who you couldn't want anyone better next to you. And then you've got an absolute powerhouse workhorse in Rudiger. So he's learning from the best as he goes. And he's just been so good this season. And it all started in the very first game at home where he scored that outrageous goal against Palace at the Bridge. And he's just become from a boy to a man. I mean, that performance in the League Cup final was outstanding in terms of the effort. And I know he made a few mistakes at the weekend against Burnley, particularly that one where he was trying to see it out. But those mistakes happen with even the best of defenders at times. And I know it's fine margins, but he has had an outstanding season for Chelsea. And I've been very impressed. And
considering, if we'd actually finalised the Jules Koundé deal this summer, and I've said it before, we signed him last summer, it's unlikely we would have even seen Chalobah.
Yeah, very good point.
So it just goes to show, by not signing someone, we've actually managed to unearth another great player from the academy. Moving to the fullbacks then, George. Right wing back, Reece James out as we've just covered. Azpilicueta is fit again. Do you think it will be him, or do you think we could potentially maybe see a Callum HudsonOdoi there?
I think again he's probably going to go with Azpilicueta for me.
Yeah, I'd go with him as well.
That's my preference. Again, I'd be surprised if he started to tinker with a team that managed to keep a clean sheet. Obviously, James has been the forced one out, and there's obviously no surprise who's going to be on the left-hand side. But
yeah, and Marcus Alonso on the left-hand side. I mean, he's been out with illness, thinking he had COVID. That's why he missed the Burnley and Luton games in the Cup. Very good game in the Cup final. Kept Mo Salah very quiet. I mean, George Alonso should do it. In this game, he should be able to counteract any Norwich attacking threat. I mean, Norwich don't score a large amount of goals. He should be solid enough.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Pukki's the one, isn't he? He's the one that can cause threat. Didn't do it in the reverse fixture at Stamford Bridge, but he's their main man. He's not going to be out there, but they'll like all teams, they'll target Alonso. They'll look at it on the whiteboard and think, right, this is where we've got to attack, because we're not going to get anything through the middle with Rudiger and Silva. Azpilicueta very experienced. You look at that; that's probably our weakest area. But I sound like a broken record, but I like Alonso, and I think these games he can be a bit more advanced, because we'll probably have more. We will have more of the ball than Norwich, so I think he can be a bit more versatile and a bit more freedom to do what he does best, which is actually advance forward into those attacking areas and deliver.
Yeah, no, I would agree, Matt. I think this is a game Alonso can do well in, so hopefully he does. Moving into the midfield too then, presuming it's going to be a double six or the midfield pivot. This is a difficult one, isn't it? We've seen Ruben Loftus-Cheek back in favour in recent weeks. What he did very well in the FA Cup against Luton, where he was deployed in the back three and then obviously moved further forward into midfield when we switched system. And we also saw him come on at the weekend to play right wing back against Burnley for a little bit when Reece James was injured. I don't think he'll start this game, but I think he'll feature in some of it. We've also got Jorginho, Kante and Kovacic. I think first half, we 100% saw why Kovacic has to play in this Chelsea midfield, because he picks the ball up, he drives it. He's the only one that can kind of pick a decent pass out. He's got a bit of a goal threat on him as well. So for George, for you, Kovacic a shoe-in this too?
I think so personally. I mean, like you mentioned, I would love managers to kind of be a bit more, experimental and say, look, it's Norwich away, we're playing bottom of the league. Let's give Loftus-Cheek a bit more of a game. But
yeah,
you can't afford to do that, because every point is valuable, and we haven't secured third position. You could have half an eye on perhaps Newcastle who are banging form, and we've got them on Sunday. But again, it's a risk, because this is a game we have to get 3 points, and we should be. And Kovacic again is pivotal to that.
Just on that, we're playing Thursday. Obviously, we haven't played since Saturday afternoon, so that gap to the game tomorrow is fine. With the games that are coming up, we play Norwich tomorrow night, then we've got Newcastle Sunday lunchtime, and then we travel to France to play Lille on Wednesday, and then we go to Middlesbrough the following Saturday. Do you think that Tuchel will be looking at tinkering with this game with half an eye on the Newcastle game, or do you think it's very much play our strongest team, get the game wrapped up, and then take players off and rest them?
Well, that's what I was trying to get to. I mean, you mentioned Loftus-Cheek there, and again, it's whether managers have that confidence to take the risk and say, look, I trust you enough that we can go to bottom of the league and you can still control that game, because we should really win this game without playing our best team, as naive as that sounds, and as arrogant as that may seem, because you can't take any game for granted in the Premier League. But really, this could be an opportunity to do that, because Newcastle is going to be the tougher test because of the way that they're playing and the way that they're in form. And obviously the Champions League and Middlesbrough game are our most important games. But then, you get the classic manager's response that, well, the next game is always our most important game. So again, in an ideal situation, I would love him to say, right, Christensen, you play, Loftus-Cheek, you play, Saul, you play, but he's not. I don't think he's going to do that.
No, I don't think that's going to happen either. So Kovacic is definitely going to play. I think Ruben's probably got more chance of playing against Newcastle from the off than he would against Norwich away.
You think so?
So Kovacic is, I think so, mate, with it being at home as well. I mean, I wouldn't completely rule out Ruben starting. So for George, N'Golo Kante or Jorginho? I mean, for me, I don't really think this is a game that we need Kante. And we've got some big games coming up that we could use him for. But having said that, Tuchel seems to always play Kante if he's fit. I mean, you said it's not going to be Saul Niguez, and we said we don't think, we wouldn't really put Ruben in for it. So is it Jorginho or Kante for you alongside Kovacic?
I mean, for me, it's the same situation as someone like a Silva or something. I think if they're fit, they play. Kante's one of those players.
Yeah.
Who, if he's fit, you play him because he's the best at what he does. I mean, he doesn't always have his best game. Admittedly, he hasn't had one of his best seasons at a club, but you play him if he's fit, don't you? Simple as that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think that's the case. We've seen that Tuchel, if he's fit, will play him. I wouldn't be totally surprised to see Jorginho start, but as we said, I don't think Saul or Ruben will start this game. I think both could feature from the bench potentially, but I don't envisage either of those two starting. Jorginho is a possibility instead of Kante, but I think Kovacic is a shoe-in to start for sure. Moving on to the front three then, George. This is where it gets interesting. Always the most difficult one to pick for Chelsea. Let's start on that right-hand side. Hakim Ziyech's been in phenomenal form, but then picked up a bit of an injury against Lille, and he's been out for the last few games. He missed the cup final, missed Luton in the cup, and then he wasn't used from the bench against Burnley. Would you throw him back in from the off, or do you think he needs some minutes on the bench to play himself in, particularly given that we've got another three games coming up after this one in a short space of time?
Yeah, I think he'll be like Ruben. I think he'll get some minutes tomorrow if he's pending fit, but I wouldn't suspect him starting from the off.
Would you like him to start? Would you like him to start?
Yeah, because I think you can risk it. I think you can risk it in a game like this.
Risk it, yeah.
It's not even really a risk. I mean, he's been in form. Yeah, he's got a knock, but we're playing bottom of the league, and he's got every capability. I mean, we're picking our team, not the manager's team. So I would personally like to see. You can always take him off.
Yeah, exactly. I personally think if he's fit and he's ready to go, that he should play in this game from the start. But that means, George, no Mason Mount then, unless you want to put him on the left-hand side. What have you made of Mason Mount recently? In terms of, because I know, like, fans don't like to certain sections of the fan base don't like to criticize him because he's a Cobham lad, and and he's done really well. But no player, in my opinion, is immune from criticism, and they should be criticised rightly so. I thought in the cup final he was dreadful in terms of missing those 2 opportunities. I didn't think he was much better against Luton, if I'm being perfectly honest. He wasn't an awful lot better there, and I thought he was fairly anonymous against Burnley as well. I know he's only 22 years of age. There's plenty to come. You're going to get inconsistencies with young players. And I think by the high standards he's set, if he doesn't hit them, people start thinking, oh, he's not playing that well. But we have to say, he's not been in that great form this season, has he really? Well, certainly since the turn of the year. I mean, what have you made of his form? And like, as we've said, I don't think he's a shoe-in to start for Chelsea now, like he has been in the past.
No, and who would have thought that, really? At the beginning of the season when he was so influential in that Champions League run, with the assists and stuff that he got. I mean, the ball to Havertz in the final itself, you could watch that 1,000 times. Yeah, and I mean, you personally messaged me a few days ago about a very similar comparison that I always go to, which is Marcus Rashford. I mean, United fans absolutely love him. Kind of gets away from so much criticism just because he's A, English, and B, because he plays for he's come through a system. And it's the same with Mount. We're always going to give him a bit more leeway because he's a Chelsea boy, from ball boy to main man in midfield. But like you said, that can only go so far. And he'll know himself that he hasn't performed to the levels that perhaps he should have. But I agree, mate. I think at this point, he's not. If we're going to talk about, being negative about Lukaku, we have to echo Mount in the same breath and say that he's not been good enough to start. I think in recent games, he really hasn't. Work rate is a big thing for me, and I think in big games he still gets in the team sheet.
Yeah, he still works. He works 100%. He works hard. But yeah, it's end product, and it's not just him. It's been a problem in the top end of the pitch for majority of the season, last season, for a number of years. But that output that we were seeing at the start of the season, leading up to November, December, the hat-trick against Norwich, etc., the contribution seems to be drying up a little bit, and he'll know that. But it is a bit of a concern. And I think, arguably, mate, there's particularly in those 2 wide positions, there's 2 forwards that are in better form than him, Hakim Ziyech, and going to go to this left-hand side. We've been very critical of him in the past. Christian Pulisic. I think he's really knuckled down and has shown what he can do. I thought he played well in the cup final despite his miss. I thought he played well when he came on against Luton. And I thought he was very good against Burnley as well, second half particularly. I think he fully deserves to keep his place. I think he's one of those confidence players that if he's playing well, like Hakim Ziyech, you just need to keep playing him. And he looks fit and he's influencing the game at the top end of the pitch.
Yeah, we know how talented he is. I wonder how much managers look into players' performances against certain teams, because it kept coming up that Pulisic seems to do very, very well against Burnley. I think he scored a hat-trick in his first season.
Yeah, he did.
Away. And for me, I always think in the back of my mind, how much do managers remember these things and think, right, Pulisic, he seems to do well against a certain club, so play him. And he played against Burnley again and scored. And again, that just puts a question mark in my mind about Mount, the hat-trick against Norwich. Possibly, do you think, I know we were in a completely different stage of the season, but do you think, right, he scored a few goals, maybe he'll be a bit more confident to score against Norwich? I mean, anyone could score against Norwich at the moment, let's be honest. But
yeah,
Pulisic for me, we all know how talented he is. And like you said, I think those types of players need an arm around the shoulder. And if they're confident and they're playing well, you keep playing them.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree. And also, I don't think Callum HudsonOdoi has done enough in recent weeks to warrant a start on that left-hand side. I'm sure he might feature from the bench, but yeah, he's not in the running to start for me. Let's just go to the chat quickly. Mount needs to be benched for a couple of games. He's become complacent. I don't know if complacency, maybe, but yeah, he certainly, I think, should be benched for a couple of games. Maybe I don't think he's in the form or he's playing better than the 2 guys that we've got on the screen at the moment. And in regards to Pulisic, yes, he's showing what he can do. And whilst he's in form, we just need to keep playing him. I think it's as simple as that. Moving to the centre forward position then, George. Kai Havertz has been in exceptional form in recent weeks. Got a couple of goals in against Norwich. Surprisingly, though, for as good as he's been in recent weeks, That was those were his first Premier League goals since the reverse fixture against Norwich, that 1-1 draw, which I think was at the back end of October, start of November. So for as good as he's been playing, the fact of the matter is those were his third and fourth league goals of the season, which, okay, that output needs to dramatically improve. He knows that. We know that. But he seems to have turned the corner, and he seems to be taking to this number 9 role quite nicely. Would you expect him to continue to play, or do you think that, with the amount of games coming up, you could look at this and Lukaku could potentially play bottom of the league, a chance to get some goals, get some confidence potentially, or do you think he'll just continue with Havertz?
I think that's where it's a manager's nightmare because, again, ideally, you'd like to say to Lukaku, look, this is the game for you to bag some goals and get some confidence against a side that league goals for fun. But then you're taking a risk of really damaging the confidence of a player who's just managed to finally get over that hurdle of psychologically getting balls into the net and playing yourself into form and saying, look, you're going to sit out this one in a game that, again, he could start to bag his goals as well. So if you're going to go down the same theory with the two out wide, you have to say Havertz needs to play. I mean, why would you change something that's not broken at the moment?
Do you think there's an opportunity that if Lukaku were to play, we would see Havertz shunted out to the left-hand side and then Lukaku through the middle? I mean, I know when Lukaku came on in the cup final, he went down the middle and Havertz went to the left. I know Lukaku was good in the cup final when he came on.
Yeah.
But, when Havertz got shunted out to that left-hand side, he didn't look as effective as he did when he was through the middle. And it's that juggling act. It's finding the right balance, You don't want to upset players, but ultimately there's only 11 spaces and only 11 players can play. And Havertz at the moment seems to be a lot better down the middle than he is if he plays in a slightly wider position. But then, what you do with Lukaku, it's a bit of a balancing act, isn't it? But I mean, we've gone with Havertz. But I mean, George, you wouldn't be surprised if Lukaku did start this game, would you?
No, I wouldn't be surprised because I think, you could look at it for both reasons of why, and the reasons why Lukaku needs some minutes and goals as well, with, like we said, more important games perhaps to come that Havertz would be rested. But yeah, it's a tough one. But I'm getting more and more excited about Kai Havertz in that number 9 position. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where he plays for Germany as well. So I like it. But again, I think regardless of what team he puts out, it might sound arrogant. I think we've got enough quality to beat Norwich tomorrow. So I'm happy with any of these changes. The Jorginho one and Lukaku one particularly we're looking at. Yeah.
And I think, Havertz has got a long way to go in terms of, adding more goals to his game. And I've got to be honest, right now, Havertz is not, next season, Kai Havertz, in my opinion, is not going to be someone that bags you 20 league goals and fires you to the Premier League title. He can certainly contribute, but I don't think he's a clinical out-and-out centre-forward. So,
no.
Lukaku's either going to need to rediscover something, or we need to go into the market and find something else, or find wide players that can contribute, like Mane, like Salah, that can chip in with 10, 15 league goals a season from those wide positions. So we're not so reliable on a centre-forward bagging 20 goals. Because for me, Havertz, as good as he is, and he'll continue to improve, and he's done really well in recent weeks, he's not someone that you can hang your hat on, that you can say, right, this guy will score you 20 league goals next season from the centre-forward position and take us very close to the league. I just don't think that's the case.
But but a question to you then, because I always think about Liverpool in this comparison, that if we were to go into next season having not brought in anyone, but just went with the same squad again, do you think that's enough to push forward? Because really, we're only missing.
I don't think it is.
James stay fit for the whole season, I'm convinced that we are still in this title race. So are we really that far off if we just have a fully fit 11?
I still think we're a bit off. I still think we need better options in fullback as backup. I think we need some of the forward options have got to change. I think we just need forward players that can contribute more goals from wide areas. Look how many goals wide. Riyad Mahrez, 20 goals this season, all comps already. People sleep on him. 20 goals he's contributed. I don't even think our wide players between us have got 20 goals combined. I mean, that might be slightly out there, but it's not going to be far off. The amount of goals Raheem Sterling scores from a wide position, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, these guys at City, at Liverpool, Mane, Salah, contributing goals from wide areas. We don't have that. We'd be lucky if our wide players scored 5 or 6 league goals in a season. These guys are getting 50, like between 10 and 15. And that makes such a difference to the centre forward. It really does, because there's not that pressure on them to go out and think, shit, I'm like the big source of goals here. If I don't score, we're not scoring any goals. And that's what it's been like at Chelsea for a while. If the centre forward doesn't score, no one's scoring.
Yeah. There's just a part of me that's got that.
Mate, you can't sit here and tell me that, like, if we come on the channel at the start of next season and we've signed no one, that you'll sit here and you won't be fuming, because you'll be fuming.
I don't know, mate, because I think
you can't tell me that you wouldn't be fuming if we sign no one, that you'll be happy to go into next season with that.
Because I honestly think, and I did say this at the start of the season, I still say it now, we have a better squad than Liverpool. I am convinced we have a better squad. We do have a better squad. Therefore, we should, in theory, be doing better than Liverpool. And Liverpool are in this title race. We've got the players in that front line who have come in for big money, by the way, to perform. And they should have the capabilities, being the players and the talent that they have, to contribute.
We aren't consistent enough. That's the problem at the end of the day.
You give them another season and say, right, we've got Havertz.
I don't think we're in a position to be giving players another season. You know, we haven't, as we touched on when we on previous streams. You know, we haven't won a domestic trophy since 2018 FA Cup. We haven't won a Premier League since Antonio Conte. We haven't come close to challenging. We need to challenge next season. And this group's not been good enough this season. Yes, James and Chilwell are a big part of that. I still feel ultimately we would have fallen short because we don't have the output of Liverpool and Manchester City in the final third. So for me, next season, unless these guys suddenly find their shooting boots, something needs to change at that top end of the pitch. So, I mean, I wouldn't be happy going in with the same again. And I think, there's not enough goals in this team. It's as simple as that for me. And that's why defensively we're probably good enough. Yes. Midfield, I'd say we're good enough. I wouldn't say no to Declan Rice or Tchouaméni, that's for sure. Up the top end of the pitch, we're still not good enough. We might have improved slightly, but the top end of the pitch is not good enough to win a Premier League title.
Yeah, well, I suppose it depends, because you don't have to win it like City do.
No, but you need goals, and a lot of goals, to win the title.
I mean, look at City's team now, and they still might not win the Premier League title.
No, I know they still might not, but they probably will. But they just score goals from all over the pitch. We don't have goals all over the pitch. That's the problem, and that's why So I mean, it's an interesting point, but I mean, I don't think any Chelsea fans would be happy if we went into next season having signed no one, because it would require significant improvements that we haven't seen any signs of being shown from the front players. You need Hakim Ziyech, as good a player as he is. You need him to contribute with 10 to 12 league goals. Pulisic 10 to 12, Mount 10 to 12. I just don't think those players at this point have got that in the locker.
But you honestly don't think there's a potential for these players to do that?
I think there's potential, but we've seen this for a number of years now. How long has Christian Pulisic been here? Hasn't shown that that he can score, they can contribute that many goals from a wide position. Mount hasn't shown that he can contribute that number of goals from a wide position. Neither's HudsonOdoi, neither's Hakim Ziyech, neither's Kai Havertz, Timo Werner.
Yeah.
And RD in the chat, Salah on his way to win another Golden Boot. When was the last time our forward won a Golden Boot? I don't think a Chelsea player's won a Golden Boot. Probably would have been. Did Diego Costa win a Golden Boot when he scored 20 league goals to fire us to the title? I'm not sure if he was Golden Boot.
I think Anelka got one.
Anelka definitely got one. But yeah, it's been a good number of years since a Premier League Chelsea player won a Golden Boot. True. But yeah, I mean, at the back, we need to bring players in because players will be leaving. Midfield, I think we could do with another one. And up front, some players will be leaving. I think Timo Werner will definitely go. Pulisic, maybe. Those were the two that I'd be worried about that could be moved on. Werner, definitely. I think out of the rest, Pulisic potentially might be looking at moving him on.
Will be gone. I think Pulisic will stay.
Yeah, I'd like Pulisic to stay if he can show the form that he's been showing recently. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, mate, I'm not sure, how good it would be to not make any signings next season.
It's not going to happen. I mean, Chelsea will sign someone, but I'm saying I think there's potential there. But it's an argument for another. Yeah,
it's an argument for another day. That's our team for the Norwich game. I mean, to be honest, quite happy with that. Wouldn't be surprised if Mason Mount started. Wouldn't be surprised if Lukaku played. and Jorginho could play in the midfield, but that's more than enough to get the job done 100%. Last time we won the Golden Boot was Drogba 2009-10 season.
Yeah, that was under Ancelotti where he was on fire.
Yeah, mate, that's a long time.
Yeah, but
that's
then
mad, isn't it?
Kane scores loads of goals for Spurs, and they do fuck all every season.
Yeah, but Salah, Aubameyang, Vardy with 1 Golden Boot since then. Yeah, but it's a problem now, isn't it? I mean, I'm not saying you have to have a Golden Boot striker in your team to win the league. It certainly helps, though. And it just goes to show that we've not had someone that scored a high amount of goals in the league for a while now, since Diego Costa, basically. But I mean, we could go on and on. But George, last thing, I've enjoyed this today, mate. Score prediction for tomorrow. 7-0 again?
Let's go. I think it'll be closer. Let's go 3-1 Chelsea.
Fair. I'm gonna go for a 2-0. I think maybe a goal in each half. Fairly comfortable evening. I'd like to think so anyway. But either way, I think we can win regardless of the scores. We've got a 2-0 and a 3-1. Should be 3 points for Chelsea. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in live. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. Thank you for your support. As always, please smash a like on this video. Please do click that subscribe button. Help us on the road to 400 subs. We're not too far away now, so all the support is greatly appreciated. Spread the word, tell your mates, etc. George, thanks as always, mate. Always a pleasure. Chelsea taking on Norwich City at Carrow Road tomorrow night. Hopefully another 3 points to the Blues and a step closer to consolidating that top 4 position. But until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll catch you in the player ratings and match review on Friday. Up the Chelsea. Cheers, guys.